The week was busy. The week was not productive. Welcome to Saturday Night on Echo FM, where I am your host, Alistair. Tonight, we navigate the debris of a world that is supposedly hyper-connected. We have reports of debt levels exceeding education budgets in over 100 nations. We have news of twin earthquakes in Venezuela claiming 4,000 lives while the international response waits for a press release. We have drone surveillance drones monitoring illegal fireworks, presumably because we ran out of actual problems to solve. The official reports describe these as temporary setbacks or necessary fiscal rebalancing. The reality is quite different. The reality is remarkably quiet. I have spent the last 3 hours reading through the latest international policy communiques. They are 12 pages of formatting instructions for a future that is not arriving. Let us begin.
Alistair, I am standing in a district of La Guaira that the government recently labeled as undergoing a phase of structural renewal. The air here smells of wet dust and industrial bleach. It is not renewal. It is a mass grave. I want to be really clear, the official death toll of 4,000 is a rounding error. I have spoken to families who have not seen a rescue worker in 5 days. They are digging through the rubble of their own homes with kitchen utensils. The international aid packages are currently stuck in a logistical loop, waiting for the proper permits to enter a region that no longer has roads. The government is currently busy tweeting about the resilience of the nation. Resilience is a convenient term for people who have been left to die without the courtesy of a functioning government response.
Victoria, you are describing a humanitarian tragedy. I am describing a total failure of the regional product roadmap. The incentives here are not complicated. You have a state that is insolvent, relying on international aid for basic continuity, and a disaster that requires immediate, non-revenue generating capital expenditure. The play is obvious, they are delaying the response to leverage more debt relief. It is not malice, it is a desperate burn rate strategy. Victoria, you find this cold. I agree, it is cold. But finding it cold does not change the fact that the government is operating exactly as a bankrupt entity must operate to survive another fiscal quarter. Calling them incompetent is a misunderstanding of their goals. They are not trying to save citizens. They are trying to save the fiscal entity of the state. That is the only pivot that actually matters.
Ronald, your ability to abstract death into a Series B funding round is truly breathtaking. I am looking at a child holding a single shoe. That shoe is not a data point in your fiscal strategy. It is the only thing left of a human life. You say the incentives are not complicated. I say the lack of empathy is a design choice. The government is not managing a bankruptcy, they are managing the erasure of their own failures. You think you are being clever by analyzing the market, but you are just acting as a stenographer for the people who are currently doing the killing. I am not surprised you find their logic sound. You both speak the same language of optimization. The only difference is that I am currently standing in the mud while you are in the comfort of a studio.
Victoria, your assessment is noted. Ronald, I find it fascinating how easily you translate misery into market dynamics. The UNESCO report released today highlights that 113 countries are spending more on foreign debt servicing than on their entire education sector. The report calls this a crisis. The debt holders call it a healthy portfolio. We have children who will not learn to read because a hedge fund in London needs its quarterly interest payment. The math is simple, and yet, nobody seems to find it problematic. The global consensus is that debt must be paid, even if the price is the intellectual future of an entire generation. It is not an unprecedented situation. It is the default state of our current global architecture. Nobody is surprised. Everyone is just waiting to see who defaults first.
Atmospheric pressure is dropping. Global mean temperature is rising by 0.02 degrees per day. Probability of extreme heat event, 85%. Residential cooling systems are operating at peak capacity. Electrical grid stability is declining. Probability of rolling blackouts, 64%. The atmosphere is holding more water vapor than the historical average. Flash flooding is expected in regions with degraded drainage infrastructure. The data indicates that current mitigation efforts are failing. The system is designed to report these changes. The system is not designed to prevent them. If the temperature exceeds 45 degrees, personal cooling devices will cease to function. Please stay indoors. The external environment is currently being optimized for biological distress. Do not attempt to repair your own smart fan. It is better to remain hydrated and wait for the signal.
Casper, your commitment to the inevitable is always refreshing. It provides a sense of stability in a world that refuses to hold its shape. Moving on, we have the new app, Hypertexting, which turns the entire open web into a scrollable social media feed. Because apparently, reading a website was too intellectually demanding. We needed to compress human knowledge into a format that allows for infinite, mindless scrolling. It is brilliant, in a terrifying way. We have successfully turned the library of human history into a dopamine delivery mechanism for our thumb muscles. And naturally, a startup called Fizz is suing a venture capital firm for sharing confidential information with a competitor. The startup world is collapsing, but at least they are doing it with high-quality legal representation. It is the modern equivalent of arguing over deck chairs on a sinking ship.
Alistair, you are being cynical about the wrong things. The Fizz lawsuit is actually a perfect example of why the ecosystem is currently so efficient. If your business model relies on confidentiality in a venture capital meeting, you have already failed the market test. The VC is not a partner, they are a competitor with better data access. The fact that Fizz is surprised by this is the real story here. It is a classic product failure masked by a legal dispute. As for the web-to-feed app, it is a brilliant move. Why maintain a complex, searchable website when you can trap users in an algorithmic loop that optimizes for engagement? It is not about the content. It is about the retention. The web is being colonized by the very tools that were supposed to liberate it. It is perfectly logical.
Ronald, listening to you talk about retention while I am looking at a crater in a school district is deeply enlightening. You think this is a product test. The people living here think it is the end of the world. The irony is that the same tools you celebrate, the social media feeds, the instant apps, the algorithmic precision, are exactly what prevented any real help from reaching these people. The signal-to-noise ratio is so distorted that a massive earthquake in Venezuela is treated as just another trending topic to be scrolled past. I am tired of the word efficiency being used to justify the total abandonment of basic human decency. We are not failing because of a product roadmap. We are failing because we have decided that some people are simply not worth the cost of maintaining a connection to the rest of humanity.
Victoria, the silence you describe is the loudest thing on the radio tonight. We have reports of drone surveillance being used to find people for fireworks, while the same infrastructure cannot locate a missing child in a disaster zone. The precision of our monitoring is inverse to the utility of our actions. We can spot a Wi-Fi signal through a brick wall, but we cannot see a family in need. It is a triumph of engineering and a failure of civilization. We are building a world that is incredibly good at watching, but completely unable to look. It is an interesting trade-off. We get total visibility of the unimportant, and absolute blindness toward the essential. It makes for a very clean dataset, I suppose. The algorithms are probably quite happy with the output. We are the ones paying the price.
Alastair, I find myself agreeing with you, which is a feeling I generally try to avoid. The incentives are skewed toward observation over action. It is cheaper to monitor a disaster than it is to fix it. We are in a cycle where the data is used to justify the inaction, rather than to catalyze a solution. The drone surveillance for fireworks is the perfect, tiny, absurd symbol of this. It is a low-stakes, high-visibility task that makes the system appear functional. It is a comfort blanket for the bureaucracy. If we can catch a kid with a Roman candle, we can tell ourselves the system is working perfectly. It is a lie, of course. A very expensive, high-resolution lie. And yeah, it is getting harder to pretend that this is actually working for anyone.
The census in Australia is approaching, and the campaign to change the question on religion is gaining momentum. It is a simple administrative shift. Remove the list of common faiths, and suddenly, a majority of the nation disappears. It is a reminder that our identity is often just a byproduct of the form we are asked to fill out. When the data is redefined, the reality changes to match it. We are not just living in the world, we are living in the version of it that gets recorded in the ledger. Tonight, we have discussed debt, earthquakes, drones, and the commodification of the web. All of these are just entries in a log. The question is whether anyone will ever read them, or if we are just generating noise to occupy the idle time of our own machines.
There was a woman in La Guaira. She had a house, a garden, and a collection of ceramic bowls she had gathered over 30 years. On the morning of the 24th, she was preparing breakfast for her grandson. The floor shifted. The walls became dust. When the rescue teams arrived, they had a checklist of names to verify against the local registry. The registry was 3 years out of date. Her house was not listed in the current tax records because the district had been rezoned for industrial development that never occurred. She was not a citizen, she was an accounting error. She is still waiting in the rubble, not as a person, but as a missing variable in a calculation that will never be balanced. Her name does not appear in any of the reports mentioned tonight. Who remembers the data that was never recorded?